So in a truly anticlimactic style to any big project, this project too started with a no. And it was a no from myself dropping Jeremy an email to tell him that Listen and Learn hadn't been successful for this project. But before I get into that, let me tell you a little bit about Colart. So our mission is to be the most sustainable, consumer-driven home of creative brands. And we operate and have a number of very heritage-driven brands in our portfolio, with the youngest of our brands being 76 years old and the eldest one of them being 300 years old. Coming back to the project, we really wanted to drive awareness and gain market penetration in a particular segment of the artist audience, which was called graphic art for us, where we wanted to try and understand the landscape of all the consumer audiences, or the tribes, as we began to call it, that existed within the scene. And we really wanted to sort of work with an agency that could help us get not only the detail behind all the tribes that existed, but also the depth behind some of the tribes that we really wanted to understand better. As you can understand, traditional techniques weren't really fit for purpose for this project, because a big quant approach wouldn't give us the granularity of detail, and a traditional qual wouldn't give us the breadth of all the tribes that we wanted to understand. Now, the proposal that we had from Jeremy was really putting social data at the heart of this project, and it was an uncharted territory for us. And because of that, there was the understandable hesitation from our part to work on such a project based on this particular data set. However, continued exploration with Jeremy and his team to really break down the approach within the project that we were hoping to take led to success and the eventual buy-in from the team, and we began the project. And we'll go on to tell you a little bit more about the great insights that it helped us get to. I'll now hand you over to Jeremy.
I'm so pleased that Jatin had a change of heart. I'm really serious, but working with him and the rest of the team at Colart last year was a complete highlight. We were able to push our methodology into new areas, experiment with some different type of techniques, and learn a hell of a lot along the way. So it was just really fantastic. If you haven't come across Listen and Learn before, we specialize in human analysis of social data. And by that, we mean working with large qualitative data sets to uncover meaning and the patterns in human behavior. And the idea behind all of our work is really to try and help brands better understand their audiences and their markets and the dynamics that are happening across those. And then for me, Colart's challenge was really fascinating. They lived an offline world. Sure, they have e-commerce, but their awareness of the social world was quite limited to a degree. And then we found out there are huge areas of interest and huge areas of consumer demand online that they had very little knowledge of. As I said, the challenge was really fascinating. It was around how to bring their segments to life. And this, for me, was around how do we find the people that are behind the numbers? Art, as you'll probably guess, is very, very visual. So when we're thinking about the qualitative data sources that we need to track, it's got to be looking at visual social. And by that, I mean things like Instagram, Pinterest, and always, of course, TikTok. When you do that, when you look at what social is doing in this place, you see that the role that social plays in people's life, it's a teacher, it's a classmate, and it's a muse. And none of those platforms do this role so well as TikTok. Now, I just want to share a little story about one of my team. Sky, she's got a teenage daughter who recently came back home from the holidays. And like many teenagers, including mine, she spent most of the weekend on her phone, lounging on the sofa. One morning she comes in, she's got her best jeans on. These are ones that she's saved up for months, that her and her mum took ages to try and find, and they're completely ruined. But she seems delighted by it. In fact, overwhelmingly joyful about it. Slightly horrified, Sky's asked her what she's done, why she's ruined her best expensive new jeans. She's got bleach stains all over them. And completely nonplussed, the daughter just replies, it's nothing, mum. It's just something I saw on TikTok. I think TikTok is overlooked and misunderstood. A recent GWI study reported that 1 in 4 boomers had TikTok. Spend some time on it if you haven't already, and you'll see why. It's fun. It's really fun. It's short, digestible, bite-sized fun. But more than that, it's become a really powerful source of influence. And that is why it was so important to Colart. The thing with TikTok and getting our hands around it, it's in its infancy as a research and insight tool. And it's really hard to gauge cause and effect. There's no API, the metrics are really fuzzy, it's a black box. Over the years, however, we've seen a number of brands who we can just try and gauge the effect of what's happening. And the chart we've got on the screen is sort of a way of sort of bringing some of this to life. Over the last few years, we saw the skin brand CeraVe really take off, and that's the blue in the diagram. And we're talking about a market share increase of hundreds of millions of dollars. Now, the graph we're showing you here is Google search data comparing CeraVe with Neutrogena. And as you can see, there's a massive spike in only a few short months. Now, what happened around this? What caused it? Well, as far as we can tell, it's down to a group of beauty influencers who had started recommending the brand on TikTok. And interestingly, this conversation wasn't happening on any other social platform. We checked. It was driven almost entirely by TikTok. And to give you a sense of the scale of these things, when we looked at Neutrogena and that they had around 80 million views, while CeraVe was over 800 million. The point of this is that TikTok works. People see content they like, which translates into new behaviors and purchase choices. TikTok show people the way to live the life they want to lead. This can be how to look the way they want, how to deal with different challenges, and really importantly for Colart, how to become a better artist. Should we think of TikTok as big qual? No, absolutely, there's no doubt about it. Let's think about the big side of it first. It's got 1 billion active monthly users. And unlike the other big social networks, TikTok continues to grow. People watch on average around 24 hours of TikToks a month. 90% of its users access it every day. And 30% of Generation Z prefer to use it for product research. And this is the interesting thing, it becomes an ecosystem in itself. It becomes a search engine, and it becomes a review site, and it becomes all of these different steps of the customer journey all in one. So, but is it qualitative? How does it fit on the qual side? So if we take a definition of qualitative data, is something that's data describing the attributes and properties that an object possesses. You see, I've been looking at my dictionary. I think TikToks are nothing but descriptions of meaning. They're rich descriptions and depictions of what's important and what's meaningful to people. Now, I've been thinking about this a lot recently, and I think part of the power of TikTok comes from just the sheer depth of information that it's exchanged when you're viewing it. So if you think about it, if you look at a text, if you look at a tweet, you've got 240 odd characters. It's quite one directional. You get into images, sure, there's more and there's a bit of text with that. But then when you get into TikToks, you're going into 3, 4, 5D. You've got action over time, you've got sound, you've got context, you've got all these different layers of meaning that make it so powerful and so influential. If we were to put it in terms of gigabyte size, it'd be exponentially more than, say, a text message or a tweet. And we know that it can be fun, it can be serious, it can be happy, it can be sad, it can be frivolous, it can be deep. It's super engaging. For example, I had planned to write my notes for this presentation while my son was playing football one afternoon. Instead, I lost an hour researching May the 4th and BookTok. So how do we go about using TikTok to bring Colart segmentation alive? How do thousands of short little videos help us find and understand the needs of their different tribes? Well, like any project, we first needed to define our research question and check for the feasibility. Are people actually talking about Colart and Colart's world on TikTok? And what sets our approach apart from more machine-led methods is that we rely on the strength of human analysis to unearth qualitative insights. Sure, we use tech to help us find the data and to give us the basic analytical information. We then take a good size, random sample, typically in the thousands. We don't need to boil the ocean here. Then we put the machines aside, put our qual hats on, and get stuck in. Rich, gritty, messy social data needs more than what machines can offer at this point to get at the insights that we want to need. And I'm talking about really deep, rich insights that spark creativity, that enable a room full of people to decide what to do next. It's not a bunch of charts based on some keyword analysis. It's a deep understanding of the consumer needs that are driving this market. The first thing we did was an intensive landscaping exercise. We used Google search data, we used text and visual data to really sort of understand and try and identify all the subtribes that we could find that were talking about graphic art. And I think we found well over 100 potentially interesting tribes. And that was predominantly an analytical process. We were looking at, what I mean by that, we were looking at volumes. We're looking at volumes of search requests. We're looking at keyword volumes. We were looking at social volumes, profiles, geographic spread. And what we did to help us do that is we started by identifying key hashtags, and then we searched for those hashtags in various different tools, including TikTok. We followed those to see what they led to. We repeated, we snowballed, we iterated, we experimented. What that then gave us is a big mass of data points to play with. We were then able to size those and decide which ones to focus on. And we triangulated this between TikTok data, Instagram data, Twitter data, and search data to really say, okay, which of these are of most interest, and how do these then map onto the different markets that we're interested in and the different segments. But social is not just dry numbers. Social, it's about life. And what we found is it revealed the hundreds of different ways that people engaged with graphic art, this topic that Colart was really interested in. It's about understanding the types of artists that they wanted to become. And it really helped give Colart a sense of where the heat was, which tribes were the most active, which let them choose the shortlist of what were the most strategically appealing tribes for the next stage. Having defined our shortlist, it was time to bring them to life. And we started watching a sample of TikToks which were relevant to each of the sub-tribes that we're looking at. And here's where we start making notes about the key signals that we picked up. And this is where the qual skills really come into play. You need to observe the content in different ways. We rewatched it, we looked for different aspects each time we looked at it. We're thinking in 3D, not just about the topic of the posts, but who, where, what else can you see, what else can you hear? What layers of meaning can you unravel in each TikTok? We've got to think about what content we want to exclude, what's not relevant, and then what we do want to include in our analysis. This way of using data to guide your analysis, rather than trying to impose something top down, is the way that we do our work, because it lets us be really sensitive to what's there, rather than trying to cram it into what we think might be there. We use these signals to build what we could describe as a code frame, which is something that we use to help us then systematically make sense of the rest of the data. We kept watching, and we used our code frame to help pick out all of the most important signals as we went. We sampled a large volume of TikToks and then used this approach to structure them to aid our understanding in the next step of the analysis. Using this kind of framework enables us to take something that's very nebulous and very difficult to understand, and enables us to codify it and quantify it so we can then do more interesting analyses with it. Once we coded our data, we started then this process of making sense of it all. And at this stage, we're looking across the results of our coding. We're looking for patterns, like which of these codes were used most frequently and why. Again, it's using human-focused qual skills to go beyond superficial numbers and to get to the meaning behind what we're seeing. It's this that elevates the data into insight. And through this process, we were looking to understand a number of things. We're thinking about, okay, what's the shape of the conversation? What does it look like? Where's it taking place? When's it taking place? What's driving it? How does it feel like to be part of that conversation? Then we look to what are people talking about? What is the content? What are the needs that they're expressing? Why are they taking time to get involved in these conversations? What are their basic fundamental needs that they're trying to fulfill? Another thing to look at is, all right, how are they framing their narrative? What are they coming from? What's the story that they're trying to tell? What does it tell us about the person that they are and the challenges that they're facing and the hopes that they have and the ambitions that they have? What's the context? What's going on in their life? Is it professional? Is it student? Are they hobbyists? Where are they? What's trying to go on? What are they trying to achieve? And then what are their motivations for creating content? Is it a hobby? Is it something they're trying to develop? Are they trying to develop a particular skill? Is it like a progression of skills that they're trying to work their way up? What do they need? What advice do they need? What's holding them back? How can they be better? How do they feel about it? What are the emotions that are coming through? Is it frustration? Is it excitement? Is it sort of like pulling their hair out because they can't quite get the technique right? What language do they use to talk about their art? And how do they feel about the art in itself? And then how do these signals come together to help us form patterns and groups of behavior? Ultimately, we're trying to find large segments of people that Colart can then talk to from a marketing point of view. Ultimately, the whole point was to try and understand how the people in each tribe were trying to become a better artist. And when we use this process to build a story for each tribe, so it begs some big questions. Who are they? What are they doing? What do they need? And then how can Colart engage with them in the best way? The final stage was all about transferring what we'd learned to Colart's brand and marketing team. We wanted them to really feel what it was like to belong to each of these tribes. There's an old marketing adage that people don't want a 3¼ inch drill bit, they want a 3/4 inch hole. Our job was to help Colart see what was possible if they shifted their thinking away from a product-focused art supply sell mode to actually helping each tribe become a better artist. So when it came to reporting, we thought about how to build stories out of thousands of glimpses into people's lives and how Colart could become part of that conversation in a truly meaningful and engaging way. Alongside a fascinating discussion in the debrief, we created a handbook for each tribe, something they can use each time they want to put themselves in the shoes of one of their tribes. This contained the 3 main takeaways for each tribe: detailed profiling data, which linked back what we found in terms of the tribe back to country, their profile, and their segment data. What the key motivations were, what drove each tribe's interest. Were they seeking feedback? Were they looking to improve their skills? Were they getting involved in different challenges? What the functional needs were for each tribe and what the emotional needs were, what the barriers and what the enablers were, and what was helping them to succeed. And really importantly, how Colart could start getting involved in that conversation. I now hand back to Jatin to see how they use these results.
So our key strategic goal within the project was to find and activate demand from the most prominent tribes or audience clusters in the graphic art category. And for this, we really needed to identify those sizable audience groups and also understand the right way to talk to them, know where they are, how to find them, and truly understand their needs. Now, it clearly transpired within the project that social data is perfect for these types of insight discoveries, and actually a clear opportunity that perhaps not all brands are brave enough to try, including our own at the beginning. And as per the theme for today, I really do hope that this shows you the value of Big Call leveraging social data. Now, we learned through some of the insights in the project that different platforms have different play rules, and that a one-size approach doesn't necessarily work across the different platforms we were hoping to leverage our acquisition strategy in. However, this is really where we have details from Jeremy's team to help us hone in on the particular specific approach for each tribe within each platform and help deliver to their key need states. As I'm sure you can understand, these insights really were critical to us before committing to a strategy and an action plan of activation. Something that I'm sure comes as no surprise, but it's certainly a marketeer's or a brand owner's delight, is that the numbers identified through this social data can be huge. To give you an example, we discovered, even though we were trying to cluster them very massively as we could, that there were a total of about 169 audience clusters within graphic art based on usage alone. And to give you another sheer scale of numbers, these 169 tribes amassed a total view count of about 16.5 billion video views on TikTok alone. We also learned that on digital media, identity trumps interest. And we really had to place people and their needs above product in our content and comms to truly generate the interest and engagement that would help drive our brand consideration. And this particular insight was extremely crucial, given that within our category in particular, the focus is generally on product demonstration. The scene was also very fast moving and ever changing. So any trends that we had to really work on had to be quickly actioned, because social media data and the trends can change very quickly. And the most significant one was that we really had to break the mold of our typical audience and consumer clusters that we believed and worked with within the traditional fine art scene. And this is where the value of the data really helped us to go much deeper and much beyond before anything that we'd done before. So based on all the insight generation that we did within the project, we've now chosen to activate 5 tribes on a test and learn trial. We're in readiness and have generated content suitable to each of these tribes, not only to drive interest, but also to hopefully be able to link them through to our D2C to really measure the conversion and hopefully its effectiveness within it. Without getting into too much detail at this stage today, we have several NPD projects that are also underway to curate products from within our existing portfolio that are actually designed to suit these tribes' preferences and needs and really support them much better within their creative growth and endeavors. On a medium to longer term basis, there's actually a massive overhaul of our product conceptual design that's also underway. And that's actually on the back of this particular and another user testing project. And this will, again, hopefully in the longer term, give us a lot better leverage to target the audience needs better through it and effectively change the competitive landscape of this category to our advantage. I'll hand you over back to Jeremy now.
Thanks, Jatin. That was super helpful and really interesting. Right, opening it up to any questions.